This is Toledo Symphony Lab, a behind-the-scenes look at the world of classical music from WGTE Public Media and your Toledo Symphony. I'm Brad Cresswell. Now we're doing something a little bit different today in that I only have one guest. That is Merwin Siu. You know him as the artistic administrator of the TSO, also as the principal second violin. And speaking of violin, Merwin. Hello, Merwin, by the way.
Hello, how are you?
You've done something quite unusual. This is not what we usually do, but we're all operating under the restrictions from COVID-19. So you were just here in the studio with me alone with the violin, and you're going to give us a little recital over the next half hour, which I think is fantastic. So this is really a behind-the-scenes episode of the program today. So just you and I, your violin, and some music. I mean, a lot of folks, are maybe used to hearing the symphony at all with everybody playing, wonderful pieces of music. But you have the violin, which is an extremely impressive instrument in the hands of somebody who can play it well, extremely expressive. And I am talking about you. I know that,
thank you.
You're capable of that. Before we hear the first piece, tell us a little bit about your instrument itself, your violin.
Sure. It's actually made by a Swiss maker. His name is Gaspard Borchardt, and he is trained and lives and does his work in Cremona, Italy, which is kind of this instrument-making hotbed and has basically been the center of the Italian luthier industry for, 400 years.
Yeah,
so.
Luthiers are the people who make the violins,
yes,
right? Make the string instruments.
Yeah. And so this instrument was actually made in 1994. So it doesn't have an ancient provenance or anything like that. But I like it.
I would say 1884. We'll say 1784.
We're backdating it, carbon dating it, right?
Backdated. You just go in there and scratch out that date.
Sure.
And add your own. Well, we're going to start with a piece that I've never heard before. This is called Adoration by Felix Borowski, who was a British American composer, actually taught here in the States, I believe.
So I wanted to do this piece. So actually, you used the word recital, and I was like, I wouldn't exactly call it a recital because this was actually this idea was inspired by some friends of mine who were in the Nashville Symphony, and they are now living in Italy. And Italy's a tough place to be living right now. They're under quarantine. And so they started doing these little miniature concerts from their balcony. And there's been a lot of that in Italy going on. Italians are singing from their balconies, and there's a principal viola from one of the opera orchestras did a little something like that, but I was inspired by that to kind of do this balcony concert sort of thing. But since, at least for the moment, I'm able to travel to your wonderful radio station and do this, I thought maybe I would get slightly better sound quality than actually on my balcony. But
we're not going to come to your balcony and record you.
Probably not. But this piece was the first piece that came to mind. It's a piece that I haven't really played or even dug up since I was like 13 years old. But it's the piece that my mother just absolutely loved the most when I played it. So I just was thinking of mom and thinking of my parents in Canada, and so I just wanted to play that piece for them.
Yeah, well, Mother's Day is coming up, not too long from now.
It is.
This is Adoration by Felix Borowski, violinist Merwin Siu performing right here on Toledo Symphony Lab. We've heard violinist Merwin Siu playing Adoration on his violin. That's music by Felix Borowski. Merwin Siu is here with me, Brad Cresswell, for Toledo Symphony Lab, doing something different today. And that is, Merwin has agreed to come in and play a recital for us, basically, and talk about the music, which is just fantastic. We've got a couple of pieces that we're going to throw in here back to back. Why don't you introduce those for us?
Sure. One piece is by a violinist named Grycina Basiewicz, and it's a Polish caprice. The other is actually a spiritual that was arranged by the British African composer Samuel Coleridge Taylor and then transcribed by Maud Powell for violin. So it's kind of interesting. We have these two amazing trailblazing female violinists of the early 20th century in Grycina Basiewicz, who was herself an amazing violinist, a finalist in the Wieniawski competition, and then Maud Powell, who did this great transcription of this spiritual that Samuel Coleridge Taylor arranged. And it's actually kind of cool because the Coleridge Taylor arrangement actually has piano in it, but I heard another amazing soloist, Rachel Barton Pine, do this piece as a solo violin encore. So it gave me the courage to try this without the support of the piano.
That's wonderful. Violinist Merwin Siu, once again, performing here on Toledo Symphony Lab. Two selections from violinist Merwin Siu performing with his violins, flying solo today. We heard the Polish Caprice by Basevich. Say her first name again.
Gracyna?
Gracyna
I
Basevich.
apologize for my Polish. I could be totally wrong on
It's
that.
better than mine, I guarantee you. Then we also heard an arrangement of Deep River, the traditional African-American spiritual, done by the British composer of African descent, Samuel Coleridge Taylor, and arranged by the great violinist Maud Powell. Two tracks performed along with a few others that we've got going today. It is Toledo Symphony Lab, but instead of having the whole crew in here due to coronavirus, Merwin has managed to sneak his way into the studio with his violin. He's giving us a little recital today. We're hearing a wide variety of works, and now we go back to the 1600s for music of Heinrich Bieber. And this is one of his Rosary sonatas. Or actually, this is the Passacaglia, which I guess happens at the end of the Rosary sonatas. These are all little chamber music vignettes or violin vignettes based on the different mysteries of the Rosary.
Absolutely. This is kind of the capstone of that. And it's amazing to think that the Rosary Sonatas were actually part of a church service at one point, that this amazing set of 2 hours of violin chamber music were then capped off by this beautiful piece. Is one of my favorite pieces, and it's about 9 minutes for violin alone. And I think it's a very moving piece. It's a very evocative piece. I think Bieber was an amazingly dramatic theatrical composer, and you can really hear that even in this piece.
We've heard the Passacaglia from the end of the Rosary Sonatas, or the Mystery Sonatas, by Heinrich Bieber. That performed here in the WGTE studios by violinist Merwin Siu. It's Toledo Symphony Lab. I'm Brad Cresswell. And it's just Merwin and I today. Merwin has agreed to come in and play some music for us, and we've got another piece, which is a really well-known piece. I love this. This comes from the Partita number 3 of Johann Sebastian Bach. There's a famous arrangement for piano of it by Sergei Rachmaninoff, but you're playing it, of course, on your violin. You have anything you want to say about this?
This piece always brings me back to my childhood. This was something that I think of as it's one of the most accessible pieces of Bach, and it was something that Isaac Stern played on his From Mount of Mozart, and you saw him playing this in front of these crowds of Chinese school children. It's a piece I love to teach, and it's a piece that, no matter how often I play it, I keep coming back to it and discovering something new.
Gavotte en Rondeau from the Partita number 3 of Johann Sebastian Bach, performed by violinist Merwin Siu. I feel like I need to give you a round of applause, Merwin. Merwin came in, performed a recital for us today, so this was really a treat for those of us here at Toledo Symphony Lab. As we know, the coronavirus has placed restrictions on travel, restrictions on what we can and cannot do. Even some concerts seeing cancellation, not only in the local area, but around the globe as well. So your support and understanding are always appreciated. I should mention, if you want to keep up to date with what's happening with the Toledo Symphony, go to their website. That's toledosymphony.com, and all the updates will be provided there as well. Thank you, Merwin, for coming in and sharing your music today.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
This program is a production of WGTE Public Media in collaboration with our sponsor, the Toledo Symphony, with generous support from the Rita Barber Kern Foundation. You can download episodes of our show as a podcast by going to our website at wgte.org/lab. You can also subscribe to us through your podcast app of choice, including Apple and Google Podcasts. I'm Brad Crespa. You've been listening to Toledo Symphony Lab from FM 91.